Penn State versus Ohio State at Penn State. And I'm not happy. I hate this. Uh, as a college football fan, when these games come around, and this is a big game. We talked earlier about rivalry games. I do think this is kind of a rivalry game. Maybe it's regional. Maybe it's confined to just the Big Ten or the Big Ten East. But I consider this kind of a rivalry game. As a college football fan, when I watch these types of games, I really, 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 more than anything else, want a good game, an exciting game, a game that's competitive in the fourth quarter. I don't think we're getting that here. I don't think we're getting that here. I don't think Penn State's a bad team. In fact, I've been higher on Penn State most of the year than most other people. I had them pretty high in my top 10, leading into the Michigan game. And they got mollywopped. I mean, they just got ran off the field. Penn State had one of the best rush defenses in the country going into that game. Michigan ran for like 400 yards on them. Sean Clifford, for everything good that he is, he's just not an elite level game-changing QB. When you watch Sean Clifford play quarterback, it seems like all you're really doing is hoping he doesn't do anything to mess things up. You're never, I don't know, it just seems like you can't really count on him for big plays. Like I said, he's not somebody that can take a game over. Penn State can run the ball. I like Nick Singleton, that freshman running back, and he's only going to get better. Penn State's got a good defense. They've got a good quarterback, not great maybe, but good in Sean Clifford. They got some good wideouts. They got a good offensive line. Hell, I still think they have a good defense. Even though they gave up all those yards to Michigan and got blown out. But that's kind of the problem, right? Good this, good that, good. What is Penn State great at? Nothing, really. And that's a big problem when you're playing a top 2, 3, 4, whatever team in the country. It depends on the year. You usually got 2 or 3 teams in the country every year that are way better than everyone else. That was the case with Michigan and Penn State, right? Michigan beats Penn State by 20, 30, 40 points. It doesn't mean that Penn State's not a top 15 team, potentially. It means Michigan is a top 3 or 4 team, and top 3 or 4 teams tend to beat 15 to 20th type teams by that point range more times than not. And you look across the field from Penn State this week at that Ohio State team, and it's just great. There's great almost everywhere you look. I guess you have to start with C.J. Stroud at quarterback, who I think right now is the front runner for the Heisman, or should be. The guy's ridiculous. He leads NCAA in touchdowns. He's got 28 total touchdowns already. Passer rating through the roof. Completion percentage through the roof. He's not turning the ball over. Now, it certainly helps to have that group of wide receiver he's got. But they've been without their best wide receiver for the majority of the year. Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's just now starting to come back, but, they got 3 or 4 NFL wide receivers on that team. Travion Henderson is an amazing running back. Everybody I think knows about Ohio State's offense. I think they're number 1 nationally in scoring offense, and maybe, number 1 or number 2. They're top 3 in like every offensive category. Scoring, total offense, rush offense, pass offense. There's no real weaknesses offensively on Ohio State. And everyone knows that. I'm not breaking any news there. But, man, their defense is playing really good. They're top 5 in a lot of defensive categories. I think they're number 2 in total defense. They're top 10 in scoring defense. I think they might even be top 5 in scoring defense. And, look, you can type out till your thumbs fall off in the comment section down below about Ohio State's schedule. The reality is we're 7 games into the season. Every single team in the country has played some terrible, awful, pitiful, pathetic teams. Every team in the country has played some good teams, and by good I mean, ranked somewhere 15 to 30 or 40 or whatever. And a few teams have played some great teams. That's true. And while Ohio State has not played a quote-unquote great team, when you're a top 3 or 4 team in the country, who really can you play? It doesn't really matter who Ohio State plays. The who have you played people aren't going to give them any credit anyway, right? Um, Ohio State could beat Penn State this weekend by 40 points. The same people are going to be in the comment section saying, well, Penn State ain't no good. Okay, maybe, but they beat them by 40. So Ohio State's got a good defense. That makes some people mad. They say, oh, yeah, they got all these high defensive rankings, but who had they played? Well, they've played 7 people. Whether it's 7 nobodies or 7 top 10 teams, I don't understand. I feel like I talk about this in every video, but I don't understand college football fans who can't tell if a team is good unless they see them play another top 5 team or something. It's just weird. Ohio State's defense, especially considering how bad it was last year. How about this? Can you all at least admit that? The who have you played people for Ohio State, can you at least admit that Ohio State's defense is light years ahead of what we saw last year? Can you at least admit that? I mean, for God's sake, 7 games into the season and you're ranked in the top 5 and 10 in every single defensive category. What? But nobody else, everybody else has played top 10 teams every single week, and Ohio State ain't played nobody? That's the only reason they're in the 5 or 10. Stop. So it's not just the offense for Ohio State. Their defense is really good too. And I know this is a home game for Penn State, and like I said, as a college football fan, I hope this thing is competitive. But it's just hard to imagine that it will be. Penn State's record over the last 4 or 5 years in big games is just horrendous. Sean Clifford's record in big games is horrendous. Who is Ohio State's go-to playmaker outside of Nick Singleton? At running back, there's really not one. And you're not going to keep up with Ohio State in this game. Even if Nick Singleton rushes for 120 yards, that's not going to be enough to keep up with what Ohio State's going to do in this game. The game's at noon at Penn State. You blew your load last week with your whiteout game against Minnesota. That was a good win for Penn State, and a win they really, really needed, too. Penn State had a tough 3 stretch of games, having to play Michigan, Minnesota, and now Ohio State 3 games in a row. They're going to go 1-2, though. They're just not beating Ohio State. It's just not happening. I can't trust Penn State. I can't trust Penn State in these big games. And the run defense, which is supposedly what they're best at, just gave in against Michigan. I know, what is it, like the last 4 or 5 games in this series between Ohio State and Penn State have been decided by an average of 6 points. I get that, and I'm factoring that in. Ohio State's a 15.5-point favorite right now, according to DraftKings, at the time I'm recording this video. Is anybody willing to... Well, first of all, does anybody think Penn State's going to win this game? I don't. And I struggle to find a reason to believe that Penn State can even keep it within 15.5. I think Penn State will be lucky to be within 15.5 at halftime. Maybe they have an early game kind of jumpstart deal with the home crowd, and maybe they keep it close in the first quarter or the first half. I don't know. It just seems like Ohio State is going to steamroll them. It seems like we're headed towards Ohio State, Michigan each at 11-0. Now, I've been watching college football a long time. And could Penn State win this game? Of course they could. Look, if you've been watching college football for more than a day, there's hardly any outcome in a game that can surprise you anymore. We see upsets all the time, but they're called upsets for a reason. It's because you don't typically expect it or see it coming. I like to make kind of against the grain picks. I like to sort of go against the crowd when I think there's a reason. I can't find one. I can't find one here. James Franklin's got a lot of detractors right now. I'm not one of them. I'm probably a little bit too forgiving when it comes to James Franklin, because as a Georgia fan, I saw what he did at Vandy, and it was a miracle. I mean, anybody that's winning 9 games at Vanderbilt, has some kind of coaching ability. So, and again, you look at Penn State, it's not like they're winning 4 games a year, but the problem is, the division that they're in, it seems like forever ago when they made that Rose Bowl and won the Big Ten, or when was that even? Was that 2016? It was a while ago, and it just seems like a lifetime ago at this point. Michigan was, I don't know if you would say Michigan was down. I guess they were kind of down for a 4 or 5 year period there when Harbaugh first got there, and even Harbaugh's first several years there. They were kind of a middling team, 8 to 10 type win team. They seem to have taken another step. Ohio State is the same old Ohio State we've seen for a long, long time. You can pencil them in for 10 or 11 wins every single year. The only question with Ohio State is, in any given year, is how many wins over 10, 11 are they going to get, right? Because so they've been up for a while. Michigan now is a clear challenger to Ohio State, and I get that we can argue and debate right now over who's better between Michigan and Penn State this year, but I think most people would agree Michigan's clearly right there with Ohio State. Penn State appears to be going the other direction. They just need some dynamic playmakers offensively. For a while, Michigan was surviving on defense and had no real dynamic playmakers offensively. I mean, Haskins last year, they got Corum. They finally made the switch at quarterback. It seems like Michigan has kind of taken that next step offensively that Penn State's just had a hard time taking. And I don't know how much of that blame you put solely on Sean Clifford. I know there's a very highly rated freshman QB there at Penn State that a lot of the fans are clamoring to see. I guess next year we'll get a look at, or a good long look at him. This is Clifford's last year at Penn State. But it's disappointing to me that I feel the way I do, because like I said, when I watch these big college football games as a college football fan, what I'm hoping for is a great game, a game that keeps me entertained and glued to the TV for 3.5 hours, or hell, nowadays 4.5 with these games taking so long, which don't even get me started on that. The amounts of times that it's taken to play these games now is getting ridiculous. While I've been filming this video, what day is it? It's Thursday, almost lunchtime on Thursday. So the game is still 2 days away, yet somehow while I've been filming this video, there's already been 17 instant replay reviews in the Ohio State-Penn State game. Weird, don't know what's going on. Anyway, sorry to the Penn State people. I'm going to have to take Ohio State to win and Ohio State to cover. The big game trend for Penn State continues. Unable to perform in these situations. Embarrassed by Michigan in a game that wasn't even competitive. This one, I have a feeling, is going to go a similar way, at least in the second half. I think Ohio State wins this game by 20 points. I think they cover to 15.5. Give me the suck nuts. Lay the points.